What's the most nightmarish way to die in history? Some say it's the guillotine, others say being burned alive. But the Vikings, they had something far worse, a punishment so grotesque, so inhuman, that even today historians debate whether it really happened or if it was just a twisted legend meant to haunt the minds of enemies. This was the Blood Eagle. And its most famous victim? A ruthless king named Ælla of Northumbria. Ælla had made one fatal mistake. He killed the wrong Viking, Ragnar Lothbrok, and what came next was vengeance written in blood. King Ælla ruled the Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Northumbria, located in what is now northern England. Ælla's rule is often characterized as harsh and oppressive. What we do know is that his kingdom was under increasing pressure from Norse invaders, who had already begun raiding the British Isles with alarming frequency. Ælla viewed these Viking incursions as barbaric threats that needed to be crushed with force. But what Ælla could not foresee was that one of these invaders, Ragnar Lothbrok, was no ordinary raider. Ragnar wasn't just another Viking warrior. His raids across England had made him infamous. And when Ragnar came to Northumbria, Ælla chose to end him in the most humiliating way he could. By executing Ragnar, Ælla believed he had sent a message to the Norsemen, a warning not to mess with the Northumbrians. In his mind, Ragnar's death would restore order and strengthen his reputation as a powerful and unshakable ruler. But in reality, it set off a chain of events that would lead to his own brutal demise, because Ragnar had sons and they would not forgive or forget. Ragnar's death did not end with his body being consumed by snakes. In fact, it was only the beginning of something far more terrifying vengeance that would shake the foundations of Anglo-Saxon England. According to legend, Ragnar Lothbrok had many sons. Among them were names that would later become feared across Europe. Each of these men inherited Ragnar's warrior spirit, but it was Ivar the Boneless who stood out as the most cunning and strategic. When news of Ragnar's death reached his sons, they didn't mourn. They planned. They didn't just want to defeat King Ælla, they wanted to annihilate him and everything he stood for. And so, in the year 865 AD, the world witnessed the arrival of one of the most fearsome Viking forces in history, the Great Heathen Army. It was a massive, organized military campaign. At the same time, Ælla was at war with another rival, Osbert, the former king he had deposed years earlier, but the Viking threat was too great to ignore. In a moment of desperation, Ælla and Osbert joined forces to face the common enemy. The battle was bloody and decisive. Ælla's forces were overwhelmed. Both he and Osbert were captured alive, and now the sons of Ragnar had what they came for. What happened next is one of the most infamous acts of vengeance in history, a ritual so grotesque and chilling that even today, historians struggle to determine whether it actually happened or if it was a carefully crafted legend designed to terrify enemies. The sons of Ragnar had captured the man who murdered their father. But they didn't just want him dead. They wanted him humiliated, broken, and remembered forever as a warning. For this, they turned to a terrifying Norse ritual known as the Blood Eagle. The Blood Eagle was not a conventional execution. It was a punishment meant for traitors and the worst kind of enemies, and it was meant to be a spectacle. According to the sagas, King Ælla was brought forward. He was stripped of his clothing and forced to kneel or lie face down. Then, Viking executioners began the horrifying procedure. First, they sliced open his back, cutting through skin and muscle to expose the ribs along the spine. Then, one by one, his ribs were carefully broken and spread outward from the spine like the wings of an eagle. But it didn't stop there. With the ribs now splayed open, they reached inside and pulled out his lungs, arranging them across his back to resemble feathery wings. All the while, it's said that salt was poured into the open wounds, preventing infection not out of mercy, but to prolong the suffering. This wasn't about quick death. It was about agony. According to legend, King Ælla was still alive during the early stages of the procedure. His screams echoed across the field, but no one came to save him. Surrounded by cold-eyed warriors and the sons of Ragnar, Ælla endured a punishment that turned his body into a living monument of vengeance. Some versions of the tale suggest that the victim had to remain silent through the ordeal to enter Valhalla, a kind of ultimate test of endurance. But Ælla, not being Norse, had no such belief to comfort him. His pain had no meaning. His suffering had no reward. The Blood Eagle wasn't just execution, it was theater. It was a public display meant to inspire terror in the hearts of any king, noble, or warlord who might think of crossing the Vikings. And it worked. The story of Ælla's death spread far beyond England into Scandinavia, through the sagas, into medieval poetry and legend. Whether the Vikings performed it as described or exaggerated it through storytelling, the effect was the same: fear. The death of King Ælla through the Blood Eagle ritual has remained one of the most brutal alleged acts of ritual punishment in human history. It represents a collision of vengeance, mythology, and psychological warfare, and it marked the peak of Viking cruelty in the eyes of their enemies. Ælla thought he had silenced Ragnar, but through his own screams, he made Ragnar eternal. King Ælla's legacy is unlike that of most monarchs. He's not remembered for his leadership, his victories, or even his policies. He is remembered for how he died and what that death symbolized. The brutal execution of Ælla, whether fact or myth, became a powerful story in both Viking and Anglo-Saxon memory. For the Norse people, it was the ultimate tale of vengeance. The sons of Ragnar had avenged their father in the most dramatic way imaginable, proving that no enemy of the Vikings, no matter how powerful, could escape justice. For them, Ælla became a symbol of what happens to those who betray honor and kill a Norse legend. In the sagas, Ælla is not portrayed as a mighty king, but rather as a man punished by fate and the gods for his cruelty. His gruesome end served as both entertainment and education, a tale recited around fires, warning warriors and rulers alike about the price of arrogance. For the English, the story of Ælla's death was more complicated. While the Anglo-Saxon chronicle omits the horror of the Blood Eagle, later retellings couldn't ignore it. Over time, Ælla's legacy morphed from a ruler of Northumbria into a cautionary tale, a reminder of the devastating power of Viking wrath and the fragility of English kingdoms when faced with unified Norse aggression. His death also marked a turning point in English history. The capture of York by the great heathen army, following Ælla's demise, became one of the key moments in the Viking conquest of England. Northumbria, already weakened by internal conflict, never fully recovered. Viking control spread across the region, and Norse culture began to take root in parts of England. Ælla's fall wasn't just the end of a king, it was the beginning of a Viking era in England. Cities like York, once ruled by Anglo-Saxon lords, became strongholds of Norse power. The political landscape of 980 Britain was changed forever, and so Ælla's legacy lives on, not in statues or noble songs, but in dark stories whispered through time. He became a piece of living folklore, a reminder of how power can collapse, how vengeance can reshape history, and how death, when wrapped in enough horror, can grant a man a place in legend. The story of King Ælla's death is not just about blood, bones, and vengeance. It's about legacy, how a single act of cruelty can echo across generations, and how myth and history blur when emotions run deep. Ælla believed that by killing Ragnar Lothbrok, he would crush a Viking threat and send a warning to future raiders. But instead, he ignited something far more dangerous, the wrath of Ragnar's sons and the rise of a Viking empire on English soil. Whether the Blood Eagle was real or a dark piece of poetic imagination, it achieved something far greater than death. It created fear. It ensured that Ælla's name would never be forgotten, not as a king, but as a victim of a revenge so brutal, it sounds almost supernatural. History is full of kings who lived and died with crowns on their heads. But King Ælla, he died with his lungs on his back, a man whose end became his only story. If this tale of vengeance, legend, and brutal justice gave you chills, make sure to hit that like button. Want more stories where myth meets reality? Subscribe to the channel and join us as we uncover the darkest corners of history, one legend at a time.